I will never forget a Thanksgiving when my mom lost her ever loving shit and started yelling at me for daring to have a naked woman tattooed on my back. Now, I do have a tattoo all over my back as well as, one on my arm right here, but the one on my back is not actually of a naked woman. It's of something entirely different. So, why did my mom choose to, in front of actually a guest, well, a lot of it comes down to how she wasn't comfortable with tattooing, but part of it also comes down to the fact that I am queer. And it was only a few years after I had come out to my family, and they were still uncomfortable with it. Now, it's been over a decade since I had this experience, but I think you can tell that it's pretty much emblazoned in my psyche. And I can laugh about it now, but holy shit, I came home away from that Thanksgiving at home feeling like someone had sandpapered my soul. Hi, my name is Ria. I am a science-based positive life and career coach, and I am going to talk about how not only are the holidays exhausting, whether or not we're spending them with people that we love, our chosen family, our blood family, other people entirely, they can be really freaking exhausting. So I'm going to talk about that for a very little bit, and then I'm also going to give some tips for those of us queer adjacent, where we're recovering and are going to continue being recovering from the experience of seeing people and interacting lovingly and socially with people who we are part of a family of, but not the same as. So first, why is it that we are so exhausted when we go and spend a ton of time with people in general over the holidays, or even if we don't spend time with anyone and we're just chilling in our own room? There are a couple of reasons. First, if we are interacting with our blood family or the blood families of others, chances are you're not going to have an entirely queer or completely queer accepting or understanding family. Even if you're not queer, let's say you're poly, let's say you're kinky, you have this life and experience that even if you're fully communicating to your family, and you may not be, it's still incredibly hard for them to grok, to fully understand even some aspects of what you experience. Not just because they don't inhabit your world and your life, but because we have a very different kind of community. And queer culture overall, there are different ways of expressing ourselves and communicating and just flagging who we are. And that doesn't translate, at least immediately and definitely not fully, to mainstream culture, let alone our extended and often beloved families, right? So first, one of the big reasons why we come away feeling like utter train wrecks is that we act as ambassadors and guides to our queer experiences. And so even if people are deeply accepting of us in a way that they're like, oh yeah, no, we want to support you, most of the time they're not really going to get us. And so whether we are trans or whether we are intersexual or genderqueer or whatever else, a lot of times people are going to come up to us and say, what is it like to have completely bonkers and invasive question, just like insert it here. And even if we choose, and especially if we choose to not actually engage with those questions and to politely and firmly and lovingly set boundaries, that takes away our energy. That depletes what I like to call our biobanks of emotional and physical resources, so that we have a little bit less energy and wherewithal for the next interaction, whether or not it's good, bad, fulfilling, or draining. The reason this happens is because our decision making, when we engage it, it's actually hugely encompassing in our bodies across the board, not just our minds. It triggers our prefrontal cortex, which basically is like it's like an energetic ping pong ball where you're in this machine and you're keeping things going, like flip the flippers and the balls are all over the place, and you got to keep the balls up and not come down. Hopefully this, people know ping pong, or not ping pong, arcade ping pong. Anyway, we'll edit this. So it takes a lot of energy to keep the flippers going, keep the balls in the air, and every little ping that your prefrontal cortex in your brain is doing, it does exhaust us more. So that's the first thing. That ambassadorship, that diplomacy, that really takes a lot out of us, and we know it in the moment, but 2 days later, we often don't give ourselves credit, and we're still going to be exhausted days and sometimes even a week or more later, especially if we don't take care of ourselves. So the second thing that happens is these things emotionally take a lot out of us. Even when things go perfectly and the other people are supportive and wonderful and vulnerable, often in those best case scenario situations, those are the ones where we walk away feeling like the floor of a taxi cab. And so realizing that emotionally we are not fountains full of ever renewable resources, there is a point at which every single one of us is going to have to recharge. And you hear a lot about that with introverts, but extroverts need it too, just often in a very different way. So you want to honor the amount of emotional effort and integrity that you're putting in, and recognize that even when things go well, and especially sometimes when things go well, it is going to take it out of you. Another reason that we often will feel exhausted or at a loss over the holidays is because every time the holidays come around, whether or not it's actually Thanksgiving or Hanukkah or Christmas or Kwanzaa or whatever else it is, Chinese New Year, there are all kinds of work obligations that pop up too, and friend obligations that pop up too, and then suddenly your social calendar is so much more active than it really was previously. And what we end up having to do is upend our schedules. And that can be really dangerous because human beings, even when we love change, and some of us do, a lot of us don't, we thrive in stability. And so these wonderful, maybe, but sometimes completely obligatory experiences that we are having and these events that we need to go to, that is going to take it out of us and destabilize us. So that's another issue that we generally have to remember, why the holidays are tough. And then finally, one of the big reasons why things can be so hard for queer people in particular over the holidays is that we grapple so much with very weighty questions about identity that hit us very young, and especially depending on when we come to the realization of who we are and how we do things. And that can happen multiple times throughout our lives. For example, I knew in my teens that I was pansexual, but I didn't know that my orientation was polyamorous until later on in life, and I started seeing people and I went, so a lot of times the different realizations that we have, that keeps hitting throughout our lives in a way that is often much more aggressive and marginalizing than people who are cis and just of the mainstream in general, right? There is also the issue that a lot of us come from religious sects that do not accept people who are queer. And so we are thrown out of some of the most loving and supportive communities that we have. And finally, a lot of us are in workplaces where we simply can't be out. So there is an amount of closeting that might happen. And all of these things and more come together over the holidays where it can make us feel as though we don't have meaning in our lives, or that we are being untruthful or just false across the board. And that can create a massive amount of disconnect. So it's something to really think about. We have a lot coming on us, and it can be really challenging. So I do want to say, if you're having a hard time, that's normal and it will get better. And it's okay to do what you need to get through this time so that you can start looking up when things pick up. So don't beat yourself up if you start hitting the chocolate a little bit more than you normally do. Don't beat yourself up if you're spacing out a bit more at work. Don't beat yourself up. Give yourself a bit of forgiveness. Now, the 3 actual tips I'm going to give you to help get you through the holidays. The first one is, as soon as possible, in between events, in between holidays, get back into your groove. Whatever your normal groove is, do not say, well, fuck it for the month of December. Do not do that. I know how tempting that is. I always feel the gravitational pull to say, screw it, December doesn't matter. I have lost December as soon as it hits Thanksgiving, right? I just am looking out upon the wasteland of my December going, I can't even. Don't do that. The small patterns that you have every single week and every single day that get you through the week, try to maintain those as much as possible. So if you're someone who's really into skincare, then don't just start saying after every event, you know what, I don't really have to do my skincare routine. do it. It's meaningful to you. If you have a routine, it's there for a reason. Don't say fuck it. You're gonna feel better to keep engaging in these patterns. Maybe it's making your bed after you get up every morning. If that's you, that's amazing. That's not me. But whatever it is, keep doing it, because human beings, we thrive in stability. We're built on stability, even though change is good for us. And so the more you can stabilize yourself in these basic patterns that seem small, they're actually so important. So first one, don't trash the things that give you a firm foundation. The smaller they are, actually, the easier they are to keep doing and the better they are for you. So smaller is actually better here. It is. The next one is don't pull back from the social interactions that refill your cup. And I know this might seem counterintuitive because you're going to be spending so much more time potentially over the holidays interacting with people, and it's going to feel really exhausting after a point. I'm someone who's really pretty introverted, and so I know how counterintuitive, and actually hearing myself say this even as I'm saying it, but the science is solid. One of the best things that we can do to get us through hard periods is to reach out to people and have quality human interactions. Now, those can be really small. And even if you can maybe talk to someone for 5 minutes and have a real and brief conversation or catch up with them, it doesn't have to be for hours. That can really help. So the big thing is don't isolate. Don't pull back even if you feel exhausted, and that will recharge your bio battery. So don't fully withdraw. I know that some of you guys, and I have been here too, are going to want to just stay in bed for days on end. And even getting out and going to work is going to be a massive triumph. So if you're in that boat, if you go to work, try taking public transit or taking a walk around to home after you drive back from work, and maybe having a chat with someone at a coffee shop. I really do mean, like, you don't have to spend that much time with a person, but if it's real and if you can have a brief but real human connection, that is going to do more to make you feel like there is meaning to the world and that you are connected than so many other things. And it's also not going to be draining in the way that constant diplomacy is. So finally, the last thing that I strongly urge you to do is once a week over the holiday period, take one day, only one day out of each week to be kind 5 times. You can be kind to people you know. You can be kind to people that you don't know. It can be as small as going and giving someone a hug that you see having a hard time, or maybe bringing a cheap bouquet of Trader Joe's flowers to a coworker who's been really sad, or writing a note. Holiday notes are very, good. That if you are actually writing out, these are the things I'm grateful for, and not just saying hugs and kisses from my family to yours. That's bullshit, right? Spend one day each week and be kind 5 times in that day. Why am I telling you to do it all in one day and not, amortize, like spread out all over 5 different days? Because actually there's a lot of research behind this. It doesn't work as well when we are spreading everything out. What again are the 3 things? Get back to your stabilizing rituals and routines. Do the things that you do throughout the rest of the year that you have committed to and that you might be suspending over the holidays. Just don't give them up. Don't say fuck it. You're brushing your teeth for a reason. Keep brushing your teeth. Second thing, connect with people. Even if it's for a couple of minutes at most, you're seeing your favorite barista at the coffee shop, that hot barista that you desperately want to be friends with and that is completely awesome and you have some really great exchanges with. Just get in line, get yourself coffee or a tea, ask them how they are, really connect with them, and then peace, and go home and cuddle your cat or play video games, right? And then finally, take one day out of each week for the next 4 weeks and do 5 acts of very tiny kindnesses to 5 different people. So if it's just, a homeless person on the street, you give them a couple of bucks, do that. Maybe send someone a text, hey, I love you, I really appreciate you. That's number 2. There are all different kinds of things that you could do. 5 acts of kindness, 1 day a week, next 4 weeks. And tell me what you think in the comments. If you'd like more tips and tricks on how to flip your mindset from negative to positive that are science-based and will help you, be and do better more positively, then check out my free ebook, How to Flip Your Mindset. And I'll talk to you next week.